It's casual, not formal. It's hosted by Rory, Penland, and Renee in tow. It's time to start the show. 1, 2, 3, go!
Good evening. Welcome to It's Casual. I should say good afternoon for the people on the Pacific side. I am trying to grow a mustache for next week. I'm going to a convention next week in Chicago, and so forgive the small caterpillar growing on the face there. Renee Yaworsky, are you there?
Hello. Of course,
Do
I
you
wouldn't
have
miss
a
it.
voice?
I sort of have a voice. I told Eddie I've been canceling everything, but I'm doing tonight. So I told him if I sound like a frog, just ribbit. I'll deal with it. But I think it sounds
You don't sound
okay.
like a frog.
I know, and I have my tea here, so I'm gonna do a good job for everybody. But I'm
What kind
happy to
of
be
tea do you
back.
have?
It's not peach tea. I wish it were. I would make the noises the general.
I'm gonna have to send you some of that peach tea.
This is ginger tea.
I'm
Yeah,
growing that stash for
I
General
think it
Howitzer.
looks really good. I think it really looks really good. Tell everyone what you're doing at G-Fest.
I'm gonna go and promote General Howitzer's Big Monster Briefing Room, and hopefully they won't throw me out because I haven't bought a table there. They haven't offered me one though, in my defense. And I'm just gonna hand out some stickers. I got some new stickers today for General Howitzer. We got the giant stickers that we got a couple of weeks ago, so I'll have a lot to hand out. I'm getting a military pouch sent to me so that I can put it all in the
Oh my
military pouch on my
gosh.
side and.
I love that.
But yeah, we have a fantastic month this month on It's Casual. I
It's really
just
good.
secured, I've been saving the time for him, Norm Lewis, the Broadway singer and performer for the 26th. And I've been waiting for him to get back to me. And he's in the midst of planning a trip to Japan. He's coming back from Japan like 2 days before that show. So he finally was able to confirm it this afternoon. And we have a great lineup this week. Billy Vera will be back next week.
I love
Andrea
Billy.
Powell.
Do you know how
Yes.
Do you know how Billy Vera spends all of his holidays is with Priscilla Presley? Like apparently. Like he's just always with her. Like
Who wouldn't?
I know. I'm just like, what kind of life is this? He's like, yeah, me and Priscilla again. It's like every selfie. I'm like, damn it. How do I get in with Billy? So yeah, he's coming back for
You're in with Billy.
I am in with Billy.
He loves coming on this show. He said, "Thank you for having me." Just a few minutes ago on the Instagram, and I was like, "Oh my God, the pleasure is all ours. You're a great guy. You're a fantastic guy."
We're like, what is this life that we get to hang out with? Eddie Brill is here. We got Billy Vera. Come on. It's ridiculous.
Pretty sweet. We also got Andrea Powell coming on in a couple of weeks from Twilight and Ender's Game, and she's done so many different movie roles. And I want to talk to her. Most importantly, I want to talk to her about Super Mario Brothers, the movie. That was one of the first movies she did, and I think she's going to talk about it.
That's awesome.
Do we have any videos from our friends or our fans?
We do, but first, this is my little thing. If you could talk a little bit about Guinness. I grew up a very big fan of Guinness World Records, and you are actually setting
it's a
world
great beer.
record.
If you drink it cold, not
Come
warm.
on now, tell the truth. Come on now.
If it's warm, it tastes like burnt bread.
Do the spiel. I want to hear the spiel.
On August the 20th, I'm going to be doing, I am the man of 1,000 voices now, and I'm going to be doing over 800 of those voices to set a Guinness record on August the 20th at 9 o'clock. And it's going to take, I'm going to do as many voices as I can in 1 hour. Mm-hmm. And we're going to do it right here. And we're gonna time it as we're doing it here. We're going to show a PowerPoint presentation of all the faces of the voices of the cartoons and the voices that I'm going to be doing as I'm doing them. So it's going to be very entertaining, and I'm hoping that it will lead to me getting some work back out on the road, being the man of 1,000 voices again. So again, mark your calendars on the 20th.
It's going to be really amazing, and the only regret I have is that you can't do it with chips. So I feel like the next time you come around, because
that's a Miami Largo thing.
The Keys. Largo. Every time he goes to the Keys, he does these impression shows, and he'll do it with chips. and then every character is commenting on the chips, and you wouldn't believe how amazing it is. But it's actually my favorite thing that ever happened. But he only does it in the keys.
Well, and the last time we had Eddie Brill on, he did a great Jimmy Stewart.
Yes, he
He's on the show.
does. He does a great one. I'm looking forward. Well, we'll get to him. So yes, we do have 2 videos that came in. I'm going to play them right
Okay.
now, and then we'll bring up Eddie. So let's see what they said. Oh, look at who's this. I know who this is.
Haven't seen
I
him in
know
a
who
while.
This is. Yeah.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen who watch this show. It's casual. I am the Purple Terror from Mexico. I am still in America, but I still am having trouble to get the wrestling matches. So if you know anybody who would want to do a wrestling match with me, the Purple Terror, you let them know here at this It's Casual show, and they will contact me, and I will come to the ring to meet with you. But you must beware. I am a very good wrestler. I have the hamstring hammer and the incredible butt bite. You will be in terrible danger,
His 2
but
signature
it will be
moves.
worth it
It's the
because
butt bite.
we can get up in front of the cameras and be kings among men. I am the Purple Terror. I am here.
He always likes to say that.
He,
I am
he-
here.
I am here, and I don't know if anyone heard him, but he did say the hamstring hammer and the
Hamstring
butt bite.
hammer and the
Those are
incredible
his
butt bite.
moves. And now
Those
we
are his
got
2
this
signature
guy. I love.
Well,
the
that's
graphics,
Nigel
by the way.
from England.
Yeah, let's see what he says.
Hello,
Scotland Yard.
Nigel Smythe here from Scotland Yard. I originally contacted your show several months ago looking for a Rory Grotsky. Well, as it turns out, we're not looking for him anymore, but I just wanted to send a message to you, letting you know how much I've enjoyed your show since getting in contact with you. It's a very informative show. The guests are very engaging, and it's a heck of a lot of fun. So I just wanted you to know you've got a big fan over here across the ocean. There it is.
There it is.
Wow.
I like how he just says, and there it is.
Well,
yeah,
that's very British.
it's very British of him. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's another one that's very popular in England. And at the end of the day, so yeah, that's nice that he took the time just to send us a little video telling us that he's watching.
It is. Yeah.
So
That
what a
was
nice
beautiful.
guy.
I know, and I do want a pair of those glasses. To be honest, they're awesome.
I don't know how he can see through those because they're like Coke bottle bottoms. It's
Yeah, they are. They're so
they said he's
great.
pretty clumsy. I mean, that's what I've read.
I'm wondering how he does his investigative work. It's gotta be hard.
Got to be like an Inspector Clouseau kind of thing going on there. That's my
I
guess.
feel like there's some.
Just
I feel
slang.
like there's yeah. All right, let's bring up the man back. Backstage. Let's bring him.
The
up.
man has
We've
been waiting
It's
and
been
waiting.
like a year since we've seen him. So let's just
It's
bring
been
him
just
up.
over a year. Yes.
Yeah, and he's legendary. A lot of people
He-
that I know him and are like fans of his. You know what I mean? And we get to actually have access to this guy. So it's incredible.
to tell you something, a couple of weeks ago when I reminded him that he's going to be doing the show tonight, he said, "Oh yeah, I remember you. I did the Tardon show and then I met you." And I was like, "Oh well, actually." Dennis Tardon made a bigger impression on him, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Because I said, I
it
actually
is-
met you on Clubhouse and I introduced you to Dennis Tardon.
and you know what? You brought me onto that Clubhouse when he was interviewing. I'm blanking on the name. Come on,
Dick
legends.
Cavett.
Dick Cavett, which
I was
was
gonna
one of
talk
the
about
best
that.
interviews ever. I mean, we were
Awesome.
just mesmerized backstage. I mean, it was
awesome.
incredible. Yeah.
And he's waiting and he's
He's
waiting.
waiting. Let's bring him up.
Let's talk to
bring
him
up.
about that.
It's Eddie Brill, everybody. Come on. Yeah.
Hey. Good to
Hey,
see you guys.
Eddie.
Yeah,
So
it was
good.
like I noticed on the Facebook like 1 year ago page.
Yeah.
It was just like this past week, and it showed that I was with Dennis on his show. So I
Right.
didn't know the
You missed the ones
order
that
of
I
it.
had.
I knew that was sort of it was like, oh my god, it's a year. And to me, I feel like I've known you guys for years,
Yeah.
and but it's only a year, but it's
Yeah.
it was kind of interesting that we set this up a year later.
Yeah, this again, when we met on Clubhouse, it was about a month before I had you on the show. So we've only known each other for maybe 14, 15 months. But again, after talking to you, and hearing your stories about the road and everything, I feel like I've been with you, for decades. I mean, we've had a lot of the same kind of experiences, Florida comics, getting out there and doing things.
Yeah,
You did a lot more.
doesn't matter as long as we're
He's
doing
done
You
it.
got out of
everything.
Florida. You got out of the black hole of the universe.
He's
Yeah.
done everything.
Got to be careful;
and-
it'll suck you right
and
back into it.
I want to tell people he was the guy, the go-to talent guy at Letterman for 17 years. Is that correct? 17. I
Yeah.
mean, so basically everybody in the entire music business for 2 decades had to go through this guy.
Not
Got to go
music,
through this guy.
not music,
Not
comedy.
music, not music,
Comedy.
comedy.
Yeah.
So,
But
I
although,
mean,
I recommended the bands that I liked, but it's just we're a team of producers there, and one person dealt with the political guests, and one person with music, and I dealt with comedy, and yeah. So it was a great team over there, and it was really fun for me to be part of a legendary show. For it was there.
yeah.
He was doing it for 33 years, and I was there for about half of them.
Now you
Wow.
started out there as a warm-up comic for the audiences.
Yeah, and I did
Uh,
that the whole time I was there, the whole 17 years.
Even when you were the coordinator for the comedy.
Even when I was on the show as a guest,
Oh
I
wow.
was warming up the audience. There was actually literally 14 years of the 17. I didn't have one day off.
Oh wow.
It's not that it wasn't like we worked 7 days a week every day, and we would have every weekend off. We taped Monday through Thursday,
Right.
but whenever there was a show taping, part of my contract was I had to be there every day, because what one of the producers told me, whether it's true or not, scam me or whatever, Letterman said, when he walks out on that stage, I want to see Paul Schaefer on my right, and I want to see Eddie Brill on my left. Because at a corporate gig that I was going to do in Florida, like 15 grand, and I'm like, oh, please let me out for one day, And they were like, no, Dave wants you there, and they gave me a very righteous bonus for doing that.
Oh.
But I was there every day for 14 years. The only thing that stopped is I had to have some surgery done on my throat, and I was only gone a few days, and then I was right back. But it was interesting because,
They made you do it on a weekend.
I would come to the Letterman show and sometimes have laryngitis and still have to do the warm-up. And I was
How do
able
you
to
do
pull it off.
that? How do you do
I
that?
had like a bottle of chloroseptic in one hand and the mic in the other hand. And I'm like, so anyway, and I made it funny for the crowd. And they were like talking to some mafia don or something. It was, and it's
Hey, how
interesting.
you doing?
I did the Mark Maron podcast very early on. He has like 1,700 guests. I was number 28. So I was very early on. And I was in Florida visiting my mom and doing a comedy gig down there. And he was visiting his mom. And I had laryngitis, and I did the whole Mark Maron interview. It's the same thing with laryngitis. So sometimes I guess I talk too much, or the body just reacted a certain way. But I've been able to do some major things despite having laryngitis.
I'm gonna have to go back through my computer files now because I may have that interview actually.
Yeah, it's still
I'll have to go
there.
listen to it.
Number 28. It's me and his mom take up most of the interview.
Because he was charging for them after a while. He started charging for them.
The old one?
Yeah. So I grabbed what I could before he started
Yeah, right. It's smart.
charging. Because I want to listen to them. I like them. I like his podcast.
Yeah, it was good. A lot of comedians. We had sort of did a deconstruction of material. We talked about jokes and how we can make them better and how they would work on television or not. And many, many comedians over the years have said, hey, we heard the Mark Maron podcast and we learned a lot about structuring comedy. And, there's no one hard and fast rule, but we were able to talk about comedy in that kind of form, as opposed to looking at it from far away. We were able to pick it apart and put it back together again.
Awesome. You're looking great, by the way.
Great.
Better than when you did last year, and you have
it's funny. I
since then.
saw a video of me last year, and I was like, "Oh, I'm glad I didn't wear the same shirt."
Oh God, I didn't check. Check. I hope I wasn't wearing this shirt the last one.
Yeah, I have my TV shirts, and no, this is.
But you actually just got over the coronavirus.
Well, last year in August I had corona.
Yeah.
I had it last, and it was pretty intense, But I'm glad I'm still. I have friends who are getting it for the second time now. A friend of mine was going to Europe, and he had to. Luckily, was able to be able to go. He was a chance. He was going with his whole family, non-refundable tickets to go to Europe for like 2 weeks and get corona. But luckily, he got better before it was time to go. Still going on out there. Yeah,
the mask mandates are coming down, and people are just getting it left and right. It's just so much more contagious now.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but so far, knock on wood, I've been okay.
I'm still wearing my mask out. I'm sorry. I just, for you and for me, I'm going to wear it.
I wear it on the subway. And that's so far that's what I've been only wearing it for, or like in a car cab you know, what do you call it? Uber kind of thing. You know, again, looking out for other people mainly.
Oh, I'm seeing a message here saying that the archives for Marin's podcast are free again. So cool.
Oh, good. All
Then
right.
you should go check that out. Mark Maron.
28,
Yeah.
you know,
Great interviews. He's a really good interviewer.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And I have all these. I've interviewed a ton of people. I've had a few podcasts. I had the break with Eddie Brill where I had 11. They're still out there with Gaffigan and Attell and Susie Essman, and I mean it's really a incredible group of 11, including Kevin Meaney, who had passed away right after our interview. I mean, not because of the interview, but
God, I was just thinking about him yesterday. A video popped up of Judy Garland singing "I Don't Care, I Don't Care," and that was one of his bits. He used to do that, and I never realized that used to be a Judy Garland song. That was so funny. I was like cracking up. I was like, "Oh man, it's so shame. It's such a shame he passed when he did."
Yeah, he was such a good man, and so full of life and energy, and has an incredible daughter who's taking his place now out there trying to do comedy, and it's pretty good. You know, it's been a weird year for losing friends, and like I wake up each morning, okay, another day. I get another day. You know, pretty crazy.
Yeah, we've lost a lot of big guys in comedy this year.
Yeah. So, I've been, it's like I said, it's been an incredible year, and just trying to stay healthy and live and do fun things. I'm writing every day, which is great. And that was the one thing during the pandemic. At the beginning, I was just about to, there was so many amazing things about to happen. These two projects I was working on, one I was a producer, one executive producer. And of course they stopped because of that. And my stand-up, was getting better and better and better. Because I spent a lot of the years at Letterman, I was working on other comedians' material with them. And so I spend most of my time with other comics, and I didn't want to do material. I've heard thousands of comedians, literally thousands of sets, and I didn't want to do anyone else's material. So I would go out on the road and I'd do this typical material that I already had. Plus I'd ad lib, which would make me have more fun because it was not me hearing what I do over and over and over again. But in the last few years, I've really, it's been really fun writing again. One thing that about our comedy, which is different than most industries or jobs, is comedians get better the older you get because you have more stage time and you have more life experience. So that's why you have someone like Don Rickles or Phyllis Diller, George Burns. These are people who lived in their 90s, almost 100, because comedy, and got better and better because you can't help but getting better and better unless unless you're going senile, and which is not funny. But if you're going senile, you might have funnier, weirder material. You never know.
When I worked with Henny Youngman, that's reminding me of a great story. When I worked with Henny Youngman, he went up on stage. This was the Comedy Corner back like '88. He had lost his wife like 6 months before or something, and he was back out on the road. And he told the same joke twice in the set. And then a couple of seconds later, he went, "I was just making sure you were still awake."
Right, I've heard that a lot. Well, we were recently, there was an email going around about how much, New York City, you do 15-minute sets on the weekend, and there'd be 4 comics per show and an MC. You have 15, 20, that kind of a thing. And people are like, what is the most amount of sets you've done in one night? Well, for me, the number is 8. There are people who did 9 and 10, but 8 was my number, and I've did it a few times. But what I would have to do is I would do the same order every set. So did I do this joke? Which set am I in? You really have
you'd have a certain set of chunk of comedy that you would do each show, so you wouldn't repeat yourself.
I would repeat the jokes in the order of them, but I would mess with the jokes in between in the cab on the way to the next gig. I'd say, that line didn't work. Let me try another line. I do the same bits in the order, but I would change the material around just to keep it fresh. And you could write a whole new thing, and you can write something in the morning, and by the end of the night, you've whittled it down to where you want it to go, which was really fun and really kind of cool. And then I would do that for the first 7 sets. So I didn't go, did I say that? The 8th set, I would just ad lib the whole set because it was just sort of my gift to myself at the end. It's just to, I was so
wing it.
Yeah, I was so wired from all that comedy because, something that a lot of people don't know. And again, we've been talking about this recently, comedians, there is no feeling in the world like making people laugh and laugh hard. The feeling is crazy. I've worked in front of 10,000 people, 8,800 people in the wave of laughter that comes, or the wave, if you suck, the wave of nothing also is pretty powerful.
Yeah. On the
You
other
know,
side.
yeah, but you work for that many people, and the sound, it goes through you, and it's just beautiful.
Yeah, it's true. When they're not going with you, man, there's just no sadder, sorrier, lonelier feeling.
I was
I've
telling
got
this
some of those sets on tape.
I was telling this story today. There was a show that I got to go to. I was doing in New Jersey, and I got to the hotel, and it was in one of those situation rooms in the hotel where they move a curtain, and then you have this room. And I got there, and the crowd was elderly. I mean, really old. But I didn't mind. I worked all different crowds. I didn't care, what age or color or height or I would do comedy, and I really very had a hard time. But there's the siren that every comedian's joke. There's my ride. But anyway, well, I go to this show, and I go up on stage. They go, "Ladies and gentlemen, Eddie Brill." So I go up on stage, and I start doing my stuff, and the audience is looking at me like, what? And they're not laughing or anything. And I did about 12 minutes, and I stopped, and I said, what I did was at like minute 10, I said, let me pull out my closer, so at least I'll get them to laugh. And nothing, not a thing. So I went to the crowd. I said, I just want you guys to know that I don't think this is going well either, and they laughed really hard. And I said, as a joke, I said, you probably expected Marty Brill. Now, there was a comedian named Marty Brill that I had never met, who was a Catskills comedian, and he was a joke teller. He'd tell jokes, and in those days, they all did the same jokes, and they just split them and shared them and whatever. And some guy in the audience goes, yes, we thought we were seeing Marty Brill. So that's why they weren't laughing. They were like, who's this kid, and why is he telling us jokes? Where's Marty, who we all came to see? Because he was their age, So I said,
what turned out to be a joke was actually the truth.
It was the truth, yes. And I told them, I said, look, it's so funny that you would say that. I was just joking. Marty Brill is an old-time Catskills comic you guys probably know and seen. But, they were joke tellers back then. I don't know jokes. We're comedians. We don't tell actual jokes, although we call them jokes. I said,
not jokes.
I said, we make observations. We tell stories. And I said, I don't know many jokes, but I know a couple. So I told the joke, and they laughed, which was great. It was the first laugh of the night. And then I said, I know this other one, and I did, and they laughed. And some guy goes, I know a joke. So I jump in the audience with the mic, and I hand him the mic. He tells a joke and gets a big laugh. And some lady goes, I know a joke. And then we bring the mic to her, and for 45 minutes.
All of a sudden, you're Phil Donahue.
Yeah, I was Phil Donahue with a group of elderly folks, and we were having the time of our lives telling jokes and sharing. I mean, there was, maybe 150 people in the room, and we had a great time. And the little heckling among the older folks, and stuff like that. But I was able to save that. I was just going to do 45 minutes of like talking, and I could have just talked for 45 and did my time. But by breaking it down like that, it was really fun. And I'm sure all of them are dead now, but But,
you don't know that.
I hope, there might be one lady's like, I'm not going anywhere. I've always been in the parade.
I told a joke during your show.
Yeah, and I'm
working
waiting
working the crowd.
Yeah, so, you make the best of it. If the show isn't going well, you find a way to make it go well. That's more fun than just crushing, which crushing is great, but it's more fun to turn a crowd around.
I can see how that would be fulfilling.
Yes.
Also, just recently, you had a fire in your building up in New York, didn't you?
Yeah, thank God the structure in the building is okay, because I live around the corner where the explosion was a couple of years ago, where 3 buildings completely went down and everybody lost everything complete. So we had a fire on the bottom floor. There was a restaurant, and their kitchen went on fire, and it started, going up. But luckily, the firemen were right there on the scene. They, the restaurant's destroyed, and the place above it was destroyed as well. And then my apartment was the next thing up, and luckily, they had us. We're in the street, it's raining, and you're watching the building. You think there's my whole life in there, and it might just go up. And luckily, the firemen were brilliant and dedicated. And they were able to stop it. So we don't have gas or hot water, but they have a hot water truck outside pumping warmer water in. So now I could take a shower without, that kind of thing.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than that. There's nothing worse.
Nothing worse. Well, there's like machetes taking
Well,
your
yeah,
leg
yeah,
off.
okay.
That's pretty bad.
That doesn't hurt you. I mean, other than
Oh, okay, yeah.
yeah, I'm sure leeches are pretty bad, but
Yeah, no, they're awful. They're probably, I've never had
oh
one,
yeah,
but
yeah, done that.
I've
That's
had people
terrible.
leech off of me, but that's a different story. That's a whole different show.
As we said earlier, you and I met on Clubhouse, and Renee pointed it out that you had interviewed a very good friend of yours, Dick Cavett,
Yeah,
who was suffering from depression.
yeah. His
Um,
went through his life, it wasn't just because I was interviewing him.
and unfortunately for me, my daughter started suffering from depression in January,
Right.
and we're going through that, and we're getting through it together. And she's doing, the therapy sessions, or we're doing the therapy sessions, I should say. She's doing new medication, but we're not out of the woods yet. It takes a while.
But it's important to acknowledge it and not to
But
sweep it.
yeah, but
And
that interview helped so much. And again, I always tell people I watched the Gary Goldman, The Big Depression,
Fresh,
which
yeah.
was very helpful
Brilliant.
to us.
He's a brilliant comedian, and also going through depressions and talking about it and making, and as a matter of fact, I went on the sort of road with Cavett, and we would do a little show where I'd come out and do stand up, then I'd interview him, and we showed clips from the shows, and we had it all worked out, and then we talk about the depression because he had, he's written books about it, and he's saved so many lives or made people feel so good by talking about it, and then we'd end with like a very funny video to make everyone feel good again. But very important part of the show was the talk about depression and how he said that there are times when there's like, if there's a stick and a couple of feet in front of him, that if he grabbed that stick, it would clear up all his issues, and he couldn't reach the stick, even though it was 2 feet in front of him. He just said he was very honest about it. And I said, I was doing that Clubhouse talk show on Sunday nights, and I asked if he would be a guest on it, and he was, just couldn't be more generous. And I'm glad that it helped whoever it helped.
Yeah, it's just such. It's comforting to know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, that you will get through it. You just got to keep understanding that throughout the process.
Well,
it is going to be over. It will pass.
Yeah, life is like that. There's a lot of things that people don't want to talk about because they think it goes away when you don't talk about it. But the more you talk about it, the more you realize you're not alone. The more you realize that there are debilitating scenarios that can be eased by discussing it and talking about it. And, it's not fun, but it's important, necessary.
So I was going to ask you, how is he doing lately?
He's doing okay. I haven't seen him in a while, but, my nephew and I were over at his house for Thanksgiving, which was a thrill for my nephew. We had such an incredible Thanksgiving, and, we talk a lot, and I just keep in touch, and he's very funny. And it's interesting because, I was saying you can make 5,000 people laugh or 10,000 people laugh. But when I make Dick Cavett laugh, it really feels good that I made that guy laugh.
Well, there you go. Yeah. He's brilliant. But I was laughing to myself just a second ago, thinking about being at a Thanksgiving table with Dick Cavett.
Yeah. And his incredibly great family.
Potatoes, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you like some white meat or dark?
Yeah, it was pretty great. It was, and my nephew, of course. And the thing that I remember most about Thanksgiving dinner, I left my phone at their house, and we took the train, and I was like, 12 to 14 hours without a phone, and that's weird in our society. Like you do everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, but his son-in-law, it was son-in-law, was coming into the city the next morning and brought the phone in with him. I almost got on the train to go all the way back, and it's crazy how our lives are revolve around our phone.
We are so dependent upon it, and again, since everything is coming out of that little phone, that's our life. Again, a lot of people are saying that this is one of the reasons why we're facing a lot of depression today, because we're watching the news, which is very depressing usually, because that's what sells. And that's on our phones and our iPads all the time.
I try to stay away from the news that much because
it's
it's run poorly, and they care more about the stuff that hurts us than the stuff that helps us.
It's speaking of family. Your son is following in your footsteps,
Yeah, I think
and I can tell you're very proud of him from the
Yeah.
posts that I see.
we just did a Father's Day show up in the Berkshires where it was a theater, and our friend Kevin Bartini is just a great guy, and also he's the one who was able to fight to get George Carlin's Way. It's the street in Manhattan named after George Carlin, the street he lived on, or one block over. And Kevin and his family live up in the Berkshires, and Kevin's like a celebrity up there, so he's been putting on like a comedy festival up there, and he decided to do a Father's Day show where it was me and my son, and we each did a set, and then we did a Q&A, which was really great with the crowd. We could have gone on for hours. It was so much fun, and we were worried because the Celtics were playing Golden State game 6 on Thursday. If the Celtics won, game 7 was going to be Sunday, Father's Day. So I've never rooted hard against a team I didn't care about, because if I wanted the Celtics to lose, sorry, my Boston friends, because I didn't want to not be able to do the show. There's no way we would have done a show Father's Day if the Celtics were in game 7 of the NBA Finals. No way. So
not gonna do it.
Yeah. But anyway, the show was great. He's terrific. He's a very good actor. I'm very proud. He's a great musician. He just did another movie. Had a party. Was in the city the other day. Staying here a couple of days of shooting on a film, and he's doing really well. And he's very funny. And even my friends think he's funny. So it's not just me being prejudiced.
Well, you're supposed to be that way. You're a dad,
right?
And again, I'm feeling all the love from the great posts that you're doing with your grandson.
Yeah, it's so great. This August,
he looks just like you.
Yeah, there are pictures of him that are very similar, except that he doesn't have the big nose that my family is. We're the big noses, and my daughter-in-law Christina has an incredibly great nose, and luckily Axel, my grandchild, has her nose, but has the round face of myself and Dan.
There you go. There you go. Also, I wanted to thank you. I think you were the one that turned me on to photography. It might have been Karen Brown, but I think you were the one that turned me on to photographer Richard Moss.
Right? Oh yeah, it's great.
What a brilliant photographer!
By the way, this Chip Cap said, my still in Boston. No, I went to Emerson College in Boston, and I started my comedy in Boston. But I'm really a New Yorker most of my life. A little bit of Hollywood, Florida in there too. But anyway, so I wanted to answer Chip's question. Am I still in Boston? I love Boston. I go up to Boston. But I was only there for 4 years, 72 to 76. No, 76 to 80. So how old am I? And it was an incredible town. And comedy in Boston, some of the greatest comedians in the world come out of Boston because they had one of the greatest comedy scenes in the world, especially in the late 70s. But that's answering Chip's question.
He said, that's wicked cool. That's a Boston thing.
It is.
I dated a girl from Boston. She used to say wicked all the time. All the time. Oh,
it's wicked. The song Whip It Good. I used to sing Wicked Good. But anyway, you were asking me about Richard Moss.
Richard Moss is a fantastic photographer.
Yeah.
He likes a lot of your stuff. You're a pretty good photographer.
It's been my new hobby. I've been really getting into it the last 3 years, I think, 2.5 years. I really love it.
Well, again, if you don't go to Instagram to see Eddie Brill's page, you should, because there's a lot of good jokes there. You do jokes on that page. Come on. You bought a pail recently?
Facebook, I do a lot more stories and jokes. On Instagram, I do a lot more photos. I did do 4 months in a row, I think, of just every day at 7 p.m. Eastern, I would chat for like 20 minutes and do that for a while.
Yeah, you haven't been doing that this year.
Nah, it was really fun. It was really fun. I just wanted to keep my brain from going to mush during the pandemic.
Well, again, you're working more this year. So
thankfully, yeah. Thanks, Charlie, by the way, Charlie Thompson, saying, it's nice that I can read what people are writing. I appreciate it. I love the photography, and I never thought I could do that, but say hi to all these nice people. Kelly McCoy, Gelato Sky. Thank you, Charlie. That's the fun part of the photos. The second part, when I figure out what the name is, it's a play on words or something that sounds like a movie title or whatever.
What I was going to tell the audience is you should go and catch Richard Moss. You should attach yourself to Richard Moss on Instagram too, because it's amazing photos of New York. Just stuff every day that just blows my mind. You know, he's got such a good eye, you know, as a photographer for just
Right.
cool shit.
Yeah, some really cool.
You do some great photography as well. You got some great buildings and some nice sunrises and sunsets and some trees.
I
And
love
things.
clouds. I've always been a fan of.
You like the sky.
Yeah, and I think that it paints this picture, and there's all these different kinds of images you can see in them, which is really great. And I love the different colors in the sky. You know, when I was a little boy, I grew up in Brooklyn till I was just before my 12th birthday, and I moved to Hollywood, Florida. Now, I had never seen a rainbow, and in my mind, I didn't believe that rainbows were real. I truthfully thought it was like a pot of gold, a leprechaun, rainbows. I thought it was all mythology, because the only rainbow I would see, like, there would be like an oil slick in the water next to the curb, and I thought,
it is your rainbow.
But I really didn't know there was such a thing as a real rainbow, and I don't know how I don't know, because I remember seeing the movie Finian's Rainbow, but as a child. But I thought maybe it's just mythology, a pot of gold, like I said, leprechauns, all that, and the rainbow is part of the mythology. Well, anyway, I had a paper route, or route if you're from another part of the country, and the route for the paper route. And I'm driving my bike home after a rain, and all of a sudden I see the rainbow in the sky that's massive and gorgeous. And I'm on my bike, and I look up, and I'm like, oh my God. And I smash my bike into the telephone pole, and wrap the bike around the pole, and I'm on the floor bleeding, and people are coming over, and I'm going, they're real. They're real.
It's real.
Yeah, they thought that, you know, I couldn't believe it was so beautiful, and so, like, I didn't know that they were the real thing. I was, I guess, 12 years old when I saw my first real rainbow.
That's
weird.
Yeah, because again, you always hear about rainbows and unicorns together, and you just
and then
assume
it's like, okay, well, that's
they cancel each other out.
Yeah.
So, what is a typical day in New York for Eddie Brill? What do you normally do when you're not having to worry about doing a show or something? You know, when it's just a regular day.
I love walking New York City, and I, would usually get up early and say, just like have some juice or make a green juice. And then, my neighborhood is so cool. There's parks all over the place, all over New York City. And, I just would go, to the Upper West Side and work my way back. And, during the pandemic, I put on so much weight, and it just the walking, I'm starting to walk again because I was sitting around being sedentary. But yeah, I try to at least do some things. I try to write each day. Every day's different. Today, I met a young comic who's from the Midwest, but he lives in California, and he's just moved to New York. And there's a club called the Alameda Comedy Club that I helped design. And the people who run it are amazing. And the guy said, look, there's a kid from California. He's one of the best young comics at the club. Will you have lunch with him and talk about the business? So I do a lot of that, meet with comics, because comics did that for me. And not because that, but it's the right thing to do. And so today I, woke up, I got to sleep in a little bit. I was up late watching old black and white films and stuff. And so I got up, the crack of 1 or something like that. And then I met this kid for breakfast, lunch, and it was really nice. He's very, I love seeing young comics who is passionate, about it as I am. So that's what I did today. And then I got up and I stood up after I finished lunch, and then I, walked around the neighborhood a little bit and came home, took a little bit of a nap for about 20 minutes, which was beautiful. And I was trying to get the creases out of my face before I was doing this. And, and so that's what I've done today. And then tonight, I'm a New York Mets fan. They won the World Series on my birthday when I was a little kid, and you can't help but love them, even if they suck, and they've sucked most of my life. But tonight, Max Scherzer, who was pitching for them and doing really well, has been out for like 8 weeks or whatever it is, and so I'm happy that he's back. I'm excited about watching the game tonight, which is odd, Yeah, some confuse mythology with the truth. A lot of people. Yeah, the missing link.
Again, those Leprechaun movies alone just proved that.
I know. I think I met a leprechaun once. I was
Did
in.
you meet Warwick Davis?
Yeah, I think that's who it was. I was with some an Irish comic friend of mine named Eddie Bannon and his wife Flea, who's a major agent booker, brilliant woman. Who's the two of them are such a great couple. And I was visiting Cork and doing the comedy club there, and I had done it the year before with Eddie, and they took me down the southern tip of Ireland, and we drove around and played in the water and threw the dog the ball, and he's coming. It was just a really cool Irish morning, the mist coming up, and so they stopped at a mini mart gas station combo like we have in America.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking in the distance while they were taking care of stuff, and I saw this like housing in this building, and I'm like, is that real? And I walked over to it, and it was a men's clothing shop, and there was nobody in there. But there was a little man who was, very little, and he was wearing a green jacket, and he had like a tape measure around his neck and everything. And I walked around, and it was the most incredible men's clothing. And I knew I had to buy something, and I bought this raincoat there that was fantastic, comfortable, and green and great. And he just looked like a real leprechaun. He had the beard and the whole thing.
Would you be needing a vest now, sir?
And he was
Would you
talking
like
like
me to check that for you?
he was talking like that. And I came back to the car with the coat, and they go, where were you? And I said, you see that building? They went, oh yeah, what is that? I go, it's a clothing store. They go, it's in the middle of nowhere. It's Clonakilty. I remember the name of the town, Clonakilty. And I just feel like that only existed for that half hour that I was there, and then it disappeared. If I didn't have the coat, I wouldn't have believed that was a real place. But I think the guy was a leprechaun.
It be King Brian fooling with you. King Brian of the Leprechauns.
He was so great. I can still picture the store and the man, and it was Clonakilty.
Now, when I was doing some research, because I didn't want to repeat myself from last time, I found out you have a Wikipedia page. How do you feel about that?
Well,
Not a lot of people get that.
Well, there are people who have written on my Wikipedia page that are not me, and have written things that are not true or other
Well,
things. Like
Wikipedia
that.
won't let you do your own page.
You're not
Otherwise,
allowed
I'd have
to.
one.
Yeah, I tried to correct a couple of things or add a couple of really nice things that I've done, and they yelled at me, and I couldn't, well, not really, they
wouldn't let you change it.
They suspended me from my own page for a little bit, and then I don't know what was going on, but yeah,
no sense.
you can't worry about that stuff. I did worry at times about what was going to be said, but you learn in life that you can't control what you can't control. So all you can do is just be a good person.
So you've got to get somebody else to go into that page and change that for you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they penalize you because you're not supposed to work on your own page.
I know.
Oh,
Olive. Yay. Olive's here. Another incredible human being. Hello.
Olive is working on a new show now.
I know.
And we're knowing that it's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic when it comes out.
I've seen her act in this other show, and she was brilliant in it. And
awesome.
Yeah. So let's.
She's a go-getter. That one.
Yeah. Another Boston person.
Boston. It's a wicked cool show.
Yeah.
That show she's doing.
Yeah, Charlie just said something about how it's a matter of perspective. And that's what I learned from George Carlin, of all people, when I wanted to write material about stuff that might have been a little touchy for certain people. And he says, all you can do is give your perspective, because people can't argue with your perspective. They might not agree with it, but they can't argue it because it's your perspective. So right on, Charlie. But you were about to say something. You did research. Oh, the Wikipedia.
Well, the Wikipedia page, it says there that you were at one time, maybe this is one of the things you tried to change. I don't know. It said that you were the humor consultant for Reader's Digest.
Oh, no, I was. Reader's Digest, actually, it's always sort of been a sort of semi-joke Reader's Digest, and who reads it, but old people. But they have once a year a comedy issue that is incredible and funny and smart and great stories, and they really do the research. And I hosted an event for Reader's Digest. Well, actually, I was going to be a judge for the funniest joke. It was, not a real comedian. It would be what they call a citizen. doing jokes, and the winner would win the Reader's Digest prize, whatever. And I was going to be a judge, and Jeff Ross was going to host it. But Jeff Ross got injured, some kind of hip thing, so he couldn't make it from California because he wasn't
He had fallen and he couldn't get up.
He couldn't get up. And it was so perfect because he's like this old roaster guy, and it just they said to me, Eddie, will you host the event because it's tomorrow and Jeff can't do it? And I said, sure. And I met with the people from Reader's Digest, and I said, look, the way you have this set up, it's not going to be as effective. Let's add another comedian and all this stuff. And I said, look, if it doesn't work, you don't have to pay me, because I wasn't getting paid anyway as a judge. And they said, you're on. Well, it worked so well that I became their consultant for comedy. And I would do articles on all these great comedians I had met, on the road, or looking for Letterman, young comics who were, I remember I did a thing on Corey Kahaney, who used to always open for me. Now she's a big deal. But she, I would like put little articles about the different comedians, and I would help, turn these people on to not only great comedians, but what's going on in the comedy world. So I was their consultant for years, and I got paid handsomely. And I was treated really well by the people, and I respected them and the work they did. So, then they went bankrupt or something, and I don't know what happened, but they couldn't afford to pay me like they were paying me.
It wasn't my fault.
Yeah, they teamed up with what's her name, Marlo Thomas's St. Jude's benefit, and every year I'd book comics for a St. Jude's thing, and they gave me the amount of really great amount of money to pay the greatest comics on the planet. Like I would have a show with like Greg Giraldo, Caroline Ray, and Bill Burr, and that would be like the show.
Oh, okay, wow.
Yeah, and the audience was all famous people. One time, Elaine May, who's my hero, was in the audience, and I got to talk to her from the stage. But we, together with Reader's Digest and all these different organizations, I got to work with them, and I cherished the relationships. There was a woman named Marcia Rockwood, and she got me involved with them, and I love her dearly for it.
Now, the last time you were on the show, you told the Jimmy Stewart story. And you did great impersonation of Jimmy Stewart. You told the Robert De Niro story.
Right. That's
you got a hug.
Yeah. I got 3 amazing hugs in my life, and the Robert De Niro hug was one of the 3. One of the 3 greatest.
Can you top that?
Well, the 3 were Oprah Winfrey, who was visiting the Letterman show, and she was very excited. She hadn't been on the Letterman show in ages, and there was I don't know if it was real or not, a fake feud between Dave and Oprah, and he was keeping a book. Oprah is not coming today. She's not coming today. And finally, she came to the show, and she was one of the executive producers of the Broadway show The Color Purple, which was big opening night. So it was a combination, her coming on Letterman, and her and Letterman had the most incredible conversation there. They really respect each other, and they were having a great conversation. And I go up to the desk at the end of the commercial, at the end of the segment, and she just turned around, and she doesn't know me, and she was so ecstatic about everything that was going on in her life that day that she hugged me, and she didn't let go, and I was like, oh, this is so good. And the other one was my hero in sports is Roberto Clemente, Pittsburgh Pirates, and I followed his whole life and his career, and I became friends with his family, and I would host the benefits down in Puerto Rico to raise money for the Puerto Rican youth organizations. And Vera Clemente, who was the mom, she called me Hijo, which is son. She considered me one of her sons because we were all together all the time. And then she one year was all caught up in how great the evening was, and she hugged me, and it was as good as Oprah's, as good as the De Niro hug, and 3 very special hugs that I can still feel. Yeah. I miss a lot of, that's the thing during the pandemic. I miss the hugs and the handshakes and the human touch and I think that's why a lot of people are miserable, because if you don't have compassion or human touch or, care, that kind of stuff that we couldn't have or we were scared to do, it makes you a cold person, or it can affect you in a way that's negative. And
we were kind of losing that before the pandemic hit,
Yeah, right.
So the elbow bump and stuff isn't doing it for most people. Yeah.
No. And even then, people are afraid to do that, But I think, there's a lack of compassion that goes on in the world. I mean, there are scumbags in the world, and it's always going to be that way. Going to be, it's like a group of people who are sitting at home right now, spamming somebody or taking money from some unsuspectful, is that a word? Unsuspected person who,
Unsuspecting?
Yeah, unsuspecting person. Thank you. Someone who can't speak English. They're taking advantage of them. But, so they're plotting ways to take money from people who, don't deserve to be ripped off. And there's a group of people in the world like that are just really bad. And but the other people made it, the compassionate people, the passionate, compassionate people made up for these, the world's group of assholes. But once the pandemic hit, it was really kind of weird. I kind of wrote a joke. It was stupid, but I liked it. I said, before the pandemic, I didn't have a girlfriend. So when the pandemic hit, I was living alone. And then I realized after 3 days that I hadn't pleased myself. And I was thinking, was it something I said? Because I was the only person, of course. The other I only wrote 2 pandemic jokes. The other one was, before the pandemic, I was at the height of fashion, and now I'm at the width.
Well, I told your pail joke, which was I bought a pail today, and I can knock that off my bucket list.
Yeah,
I told that to my sister, and she loved it.
Oh, good. I like
She'll be
wordplay.
telling that to everybody now.
Yeah, I love wordplay, and I love that stuff. And that's why I love Carlin, and that's what helped me to be friends with him.
I hope she gives you credit. I do.
Okay. I'm just proud that she liked it and is using it.
You are quoted as saying, there is sick money in war and disease.
Mm-hmm.
It's too bad peace and good health aren't as lucrative.
Yeah. And when I say sick money, it's a play on words. There's there are ways to beat diabetes type 2. It's just, you can do it in sometimes 5 days or 60 days. Gone completely. None of the pills, none of the medicines, but it's about being healthy. You have to, 99% of diabetes type 2 can be gone within a week to 6 weeks. And like I said, all the medication is gone, but there's more money in medicine being made off of diabetes. So when you have a commercial for it, these pills, they're not going to say, let's see, just do away with all the problems that are created by bad people. That's true. And some people are not, some people don't mean to be bad. It's just they have had a rough life, or they've been abused and mentally or physically. And the only way to sort of take it out is they unfortunately take it out in a negative way. But again, it's all about, like, war, there's money in war. That's why there's always going to be war. There's a famous song written by Nick Lowe called "What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding," who he wrote for Elvis Costello to perform. And it just really makes sense. What's so funny about that? You can have that in your lifetime. You can, you can sit there and say, look, we're here to find out a solution to take the negativity out of what's going on, but there's no money in it. So people are mainly in it.
This is the problem.
Money. Yeah.
Greed is tearing this planet apart.
Greed over compassion is the formula for the United States. So on July 4th, I'm not the only one. I many friends who were kind of depressed on July 4th, because although we love America and we love the country itself, we're led very poorly, but it's throughout history. You don't really have good leaders, because, they might be idealistic, but eventually, they're responsible for making people money. Corporations, if they make $1 billion 1 year, well, they're not satisfied with $1 billion. They have to get $1 billion and one the next year, or they see themselves as failures. But if they got $500 million, they'd still be the most successful, incredible company. But everyone, more, I need more. This is, and that's where the sick money is. The tiniest percentage of people in our country reap the benefits of the hard work that the rest of the country does. And it's so unfair. And that's why people make, like, someone wants to do something for everybody. The people, and not all money people are bad. You know, there are incredibly great and very wealthy people who do beautiful things for society, and never I would.
That's true. I shouldn't twist my mouth like that, because there are a lot of, like, I mean, I really hated Bill Gates way back in the day, only to find out that the guy I was rooting for, Steve Jobs, was the jerkwad, and that Gates and his wife give like half of what they make
Right.
to
Well,
charities, mostly children's charities around the world, you know?
right. You know, there are a lot of generous people. So money's not the bad thing. It's the pursuit, the ugly pursuit of it as at the expense of people who, you know, if there's one child who doesn't go to bed tonight fed, then the politician should be fired, because that politician should never America should never have a child go hungry. We have so much money and so much excess.
Right.
The thing that eats away at me is the fact that, you know, millions of children go to bed hungry in this country. You know, it doesn't make any sense. So if you're a politician and you're in office and a kid goes to bed hungry that night, you're not allowed to go home until you fix that problem. You can't go home to your family if you decide to be a politician and your job is to look out for your constituents. Well, then you don't get to go home until every child is fed.
They're never going to pass a law that makes, who are the guys that give the kickbacks?
The lobbyists.
The lobbyists make lobbyists illegal.
Of course, because
That's never
they're
going
in
to happen.
charge. Why would they allow that? You know,
It ain't going to happen, unfortunately, because the people that got to pass it, guess what?
yeah, you know, and you understand. You know, I
And
mean, you
that's the
understand
problem.
the thinking, but it's you know, you're not doing your job. You know, like, you know, there are a lot of touchy issues like abortion and gun control and all that kind of stuff. But the major portion of the people are not being satisfied. They're catering to the smallest group of people who might be fanatics, and those are the people who are the loudest and, you know,
And have money.
tend to make money off of that kind of stuff. So,
Right.
you know, so it's a shame. So you have to make the best of it. That's why comics are great, because you get to make people laugh, you get to make people think about that kind of stuff, but you've got to do it in a funny way. Like we're having a very serious conversation, but you have to do it in a funny way so that people can laugh at all this crap. And that's why George Carlin and Richard Pryor was so great at what they did, because, you know, Bill Hicks, you know, these comics who,
Oh, yeah.
their words today, you know, you hear George Carlin
Still resonate.
abortion and about treating children poorly, and that was he died in 2008, so this was from the 1990s and stuff, and it's perfect for today, but people don't want to hear it. You know, they like blinders. You know, it's the same thing with depression. They don't want to hear it. They want to sweep it under the rug, and everything's good, everything's fine. No, it's not. And there are ways to be compassionate.
Far from fine.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I actually shared a story this morning that I read late last night. I was up till 4:00, you know, on my phone. And about, you know, a little kid that went in and they needed to make a walker for him. And these people at, I think it was Home Depot, made it for him just to watch him light up, you know, when he got it. And they gave it to him for free.
He didn't, you know.
No.
Okay.
His smile.
I see.
His smile lit up.
I wasn't really
he
sure.
got his own little walker. And,
you know, he got his walker. Now he can smoke. He can go to the smoking section.
I wish I could get news like that every day to inspire me and to warm my heart and show there's compassion still out there.
You know what I found out? I asked that question a long time ago. I was going to be a news person. I went to school originally, broadcast journalism. People don't want that. People won't watch the good news. People don't want good news. People need drama. And if it doesn't exist, they'll create drama for them. Yes, Charlie Thompson, you were so right.
Yes. Ouch. So there was a whole bunch of stuff I wanted to get to here that I didn't get to, and I figured that was going to happen. I did want to ask you, when is that memoir coming? Because you keep writing great stories.
Well, here's the thing. I've written 320 something stories right now, and I keep writing every day. And I tried to get it published, and I'm not as famous. Like you know, I'm known among comedians because I booked comedians and, you know, comedy shows and Letterman and comedy clubs and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm not a household name. The last time I did a major television show as a comedian in America was like 2011. So that's a long time ago. So, I'm not on the tip of people's tongues. So they're not saying, like the guy who I went to, he had published Trevor Noah's book. Trevor Noah's on television in front of 100 million people or whatever
Right.
every
The Daily
day.
Show.
So you can publish his book. It was a good book and it was really well written. But people are not that interested in my story as far as making money for the companies. Now, if it caught on, which I believe it would, because people like Dick Cavett and people like Stephen Wright have said to me, your stories are amazing. You should have
Yes.
a book. And I'd be happy to write the forward and I'd be happy to write the backward or whatever you do. So then a situation came up where someone was going to we were going to do an audio book, but they passed on it. So, I'm not giving up, but at least I'm putting it out.
Don't give up.
I'm putting it out
It's
there.
gonna break. It's gonna break. I'll tell you right now.
I
You'll
just
get
keep writing. I like it.
So where can we catch you in the near future? Where can our audience go to see it?
Well, a lot of the stuff I have for sure is stuff in September and October. I'm going to be in the St. Pete area, St. Pete, Tampa area. September 30th, me, Nick Griffin, and Caroline Ray are doing a big show down there. We're going to get all the information out pretty soon. There's a lot of big things happening, but one of the things that I'm working on is these shows that I was working on before the pandemic. One's a music show and one's a comedy series. And if they happen, I have to leave time now to not book anything really solid because I might have to drop all of them for these major shows. So I am
remind me about September because I'm going to drive over to the Tampa Bay area to see you.
Great. And in November, I'm doing Coconuts on St. Pete Beach only because I have such a history in that place. And I make no money. They
Right.
pay 17 cents a set, but I love comedy, so it doesn't matter, but you can go to Eddie Comic on Instagram, Eddie Comic on Instagram, and you can see a lot of the photography I do, or you can write to me there. Now on Facebook, I'm pretty much out of, friend request stuff, but there is room for you to just follow the page, and then you can always write to me and I'd be happy to write back. And so those are the two main ones. And then, I'm doing Twitter, which is Eddie_Brill over at Twitter. I don't do much. I don't get into politics or religion or any of that kind of stuff on Twitter. I pretty much just do one-liners and jokes, and because it's too much of a zoo over there.
Well, thank you so much for coming back on again, Eddie. I appreciate it so much.
Where'd Renee go? Did her voice go away?
I'm
don't
here.
know. She's-
I had
Oh,
to
just
rest
disappears
it. I
like
did
that.
have to rest it. I'm just
Uh.
resting. But you guys also, it was such a good show. And Eddie does have a million stories. And I also want
He
to read
does.
that memoir so bad. I think about it all the time. You
Oh,
have
thank
to
you.
do it. Even if you just do it and then give it to people.
Yeah, right. Hand it out on the street. I live in the East Village of Manhattan, and on St. Mark's
Yeah.
Place between First and A. When we were young, the singer Beck, he would he would stand in front of this restaurant on St. Mark's and sell his poetry for $1. And
Wow.
so he
Well, it
started
worked for
somewhere.
him. Yeah,
Started
it works for
somewhere,
him.
and he's
Yeah.
amazing.
You do have great stories, and I really hope that you'll come back again, Eddie, because
Of
everybody
course.
looks forward to you. You're amazing. So we all love you, and we're all so grateful.
Well, thank you so much, and
Indeed.
we'll do it again soon.
Yes, we should.
All
And
right.
I'll be
Tell
on
me
more.
when.
I'll
You tell
rest
me
my
when.
voice.
Okay.
Okay, love you,
All right.
Eddie.
All right. Again,
Bye.
keep
Thank you,
us
everybody.
posted on the St. Petersburg because I definitely want to
Yeah.
come over and see you.
Sounds